Hey guys! Okay, finally, it's working. So, hello.
Who are you?
I'm Noah.
I forgot.
Yeah, he forgot. Anyway, it's been a while, hasn't it?
I have no idea. I don't think a while is actually a measurement of time, and even if it were, I wouldn't be able to gauge what it was. Hi
Well,
there.
hey, Adam's being all snobby with his water.
Yeah, I don't think that we've done a video in a little while, because after we finished the number twos of this whole DC relaunch, we weren't going to continue talking about every individual issue going into number three, because I think it's the kind of point where if you start talking about a jumping on point, then you've got stuff to say. It's very easy to talk about any number three. It's very easy to talk about every number four, but you get to the point where is it as productive as you would expect? But we have certainly been reading. We have certainly been
Keeping up with the comics.
and
What we've
our
decided to do.
yes.
Oh, no, you finished your thing.
No, I was just going to say what you were about to say.
So what we've decided to do is instead of reviewing comics week by week as individual issues, we'll be reviewing story arcs, as they complete.
Yeah. Now this is for long-running series. If any new miniseries come along, if anything new that would need an introduction or sort of
Then we'll do that,
new
yeah.
look, we would do that. But as far as these ongoing series, now that we're actually getting to some of these first arcs wrapping up, I think it's a good point to kind of look back and reflect on what's worked, what hasn't, and where we are looking ahead.
So we're joined today by the last of the today the last of the issue 4s came out. This is the 4th week of issue 4. So, and it's also the end of the year.
Yeah.
So it's very
wow. I just realized, what day is it? Oh, it's the 28th. By the time this is up, it'll be the 29th. It's almost New Year's.
Yeah, happy holidays, guys.
Yeah.
So we've decided to review the end of the arcs that have completed so far. We have Stormwatch. We only have 3 and 4 with us right now. We have hold this. We got Batgirl, and we have all 4 issues of that.
And let's talk about just that for this video.
Come on. Let's just do one more.
What did you...
Look what you did. This is what you make me do sometimes.
I make you do the most horrible thing.
And then we have Supergirl, issue 1 through 4, and that's what we'll be reviewing in this video.
Works for me.
So what do you want to start with?
Well, let's go in the order in which they were randomly dropped on the floor. Starting with Batgirl, number 3. Well, not Batgirl number 3,
but Batgirl, the Batgirl arc.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So do you want to start?
Sure, why not? Batgirl. So, it seems that she's finally gotten back into the swing of being some kind of a superhero. I have to say, I did enjoy reading these, although at the same time, it felt to kind of drag a bit in the middle. It's a very, very character-driven story. It's very, very much about Batgirl being comfortable with being Batgirl, with Barbara Gordon being comfortable with being Batgirl, after having spent so much time, apparently it was 3 years.
As Oracle.
As Oracle. Not just as Oracle, but just not as Batgirl, because she became Oracle down the line. But so kind of her adjusting and dealing with it on both a physical level, getting back into things, and also more on a personal level. But since that's what drives the story, I think that in terms of the actual conflict, the tangible conflict of this villain Mirror who she's fighting, who needs to take revenge on the world for people surviving miracles.
He has some sort of weird survivor's guilt thing going on.
Definitely, that's what they talk about. But as for that, I think it's a bit weak, to be honest. And when I say a bit weak, not that it's terrible, but that I just think there's not very much to it, that there's some chasing, some fighting. I think the detective work involved is interesting, but I think that, especially with the character Mirror, I don't know...
And the detective work is over pretty quickly. Well, it's kind of open shut.
Yeah, it's about half of issue 3, I think. Naturally, it's not really a very big mystery, so you're not going to have that much of it. But I think that for the character, as a character, I think it works as an idea.
There's a lot of chasing and a lot of cat and mouse.
Yeah, there's a lot of cat and mouse, and also he seems very in and out of it. That he's not really very prominent, he's not really figuring very much into the story.
Yeah.
So this amount of the parts that are built around him and the parts that are built around what he does feel a bit flimsy.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot, for example, we held up issue 3. Half of issue 3 is just Batgirl and Nightwing hanging out.
Flirting.
Well, yeah, pretty much hanging out.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm not saying that it's bad for the story, But I'm just saying that that part of the story that's more
Takes
of
away
the
from Mirror.
yeah. So I'm saying that the mirror element of the story and that actually catching the bad guy element of the story is really probably the weakest part. Your thoughts?
Again, I like Batgirl. I like it a lot. It's one of my favorite series of the New 52.
Really?
And it's one of the ones that I've stuck with because I've given up on a lot of series around the issue 3. So that I bought the issue 4 shows just how good I thought it was. But yeah, it does seem like it is more character driven than plot driven. And it's, well, as of characters, it's more Batgirl driven than anything else. I'd say most of the dialogue, well, most of the script is just her inner monologue. So if you don't like Batgirl, it's definitely don't pick it up. Yeah.
I think that actually raises an interesting question. Who is Batgirl? I mean, I think that we haven't seen Bat. It's interesting that Gail Simone pointed out in an interview leading up to the launch of this Batgirl series that before these titles, Batgirl, Barbara Gordon as Batgirl never had her own series. She was never actually featured in a solo series. So this, and also she hasn't been Batgirl for decades in terms of comics. So actually defining who Barbara Gordon is as Batgirl is kind of a difficult task. And I think this kind of doesn't necessarily answer all of those
It
questions.
answers who Barbara Gordon is as Barbara Gordon.
That's true. But as for her as a crime fighter, as for her, and not just as a crime fighter, but as Batgirl specifically, that identity, do you think it really does? Do you think we really get a sense of
we get a
going on?
lot. I think we get a lot of, and this is only the first arc, so we have no idea where it's going from here.
And it's a short one, too.
Yeah.
Although, at the same time, I think it's good that it ended early. I think
Mhm.
if it had dragged out, there probably wouldn't have been enough to...
Yeah, because you already knew who Mirror was by issue 3 and on all that.
Yeah.
So it's good that they closed it when everything was, closing time. But we got a lot of who Barbara wants to be when she's Batgirl, I think. We get a lot of Barbara Gordon. Unlike Batman, who is Batman and puts on the Bruce Wayne mask, we get a lot of Barbara Gordon putting on a Batgirl mask and being Batgirl. So it's not so much that it's who she is as Batgirl, but it's who Barbara Gordon is when she wants to be, or when she's putting on the Batgirl persona.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that issue 4 actually it begins with a dream of hers in which it's Barbara and Batgirl having kind of an argument with each other that it has a lot to do with, I think, Batgirl in some ways seems to represent sort of a part of her character, not so much an identity that she takes on, but just an embodiment of some of her needs as an individual, and just kind of, I think, that hero instinct within her. So it's interesting, as I said, it lays down a lot of things. I do have some things that I don't necessarily like about it. I don't know if, I think I might not have talked enough about the things that I do like about it.
Oh, no, it's very good.
Since you really like the story, I think maybe you should focus more on that element.
Well, I like the character of Batgirl. I think she's, well, Barbara. She's very well written. She's likable, relatable. As a teenage boy reading about a 20-something-year-old girl who fights crime, it's like she feels like she could be a real person, just the way that she's written. Like she's I don't want to say her struggles, but that she is having trouble with a lot of this is very humanizing, I guess. And it does start off slow. It starts off not really a heavy plot, and then you have Nightwing intervening, and he cuts a bit into the story. So it is very much just inner monologue and her trying to get into the character herself. But I like that. It's a good character. It's just the way that they made the arc. They made it very simple, so you get a lot of personal. Yeah, it's very personal. And Mirror, even though he's not really that good of a villain, just the way that I think Batgirl gets, like just the how Batgirl's inner monologue bounces off the factor of Mirror and what he's fighting for, or killing for rather.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't say
it's a good setup. I think for what the series will do.
I don't think I would say that Mirror is a bad villain. I think he's appropriate for the story. I just think that he's not the kind of villain that you would. He's not the kind of villain that would drive a story.
No, he's not. He's not a Joker or a Two-Face or anything.
Yeah. And also, I think one of the things that actually kind of bothers me a bit is I do think that definitely Barbara Gordon's personality comes through very well in her monologues. Whether I necessarily like it, I think is more a matter of personal taste. There are things about her character that I like, things that I don't, but those are more just personal preferences. But one thing that kind of stands out to me is that she seems getting back into the costume kind of very unsure of herself a bit, and because she's still again adjusting
To having
to
legs.
to having legs, not just having legs, but going out and fighting thugs and committing crimes, and that's a great thing that she. There are several scenes throughout the arc that have nothing to do with this main villain. That's
Mhm.
her doing other Batgirl type work. But I think that she's a bit unsure of herself, I think, at the beginning. But by the end, I'm not necessarily sure that she's really come into herself in the way that we would
Well,
expect.
we're only in the first arc.
That's true, but I think that when you take Batgirl out of the chair, if you're putting her into that Batgirl costume again, and you're saying, okay, this is what's right for Barbara Gordon, this is what we need to do, and this is what she's going to be from now on, that although I think that transitional element is a very good way to tell a story, that pretty soon you do need to kind of establish
That she is Batgirl.
that she is
Yeah.
Batgirl, and that she should be Batgirl, and that this is what's right for her, and that, yeah,
Well, that's what's going on in the comic too, as well
Yeah,
as out of it.
it is what's.
I mean, Nightwing says that it's up to her, and he's not really. He's kind of doubting. So right now, even though the first arc is complete, there's still the overall, I guess, motif or theme.
The longer character.
The longer
development.
character development is whether or not Barbara Gordon wants to be Batgirl anymore, and if she is she any good at it, and can she do it?
Yeah, I just think that I personally I would kind of prefer to see kind of a Batgirl who by this point is a bit more in her own element, I suppose. But at the same time, this will vary from person to person. And also, although this first kind of arc thing is over, we don't have a completely resolved story. It does continue with other elements that I'm not going to get into. But yeah,
do you think we'll see Mirror again?
It's possible. This could be more of a brief respite.
Yeah,
but it may also not be,
because he doesn't seem like arch-villain material. I don't think. I mean, he seems physically competent enough. I mean, Batgirl gets beat up a lot in this. But I don't think he has a lot of staying power, really.
Yeah, because the thing is that...
And he has a cool costume. I like his costume.
I definitely do, too. Although I think that wearing a glass faceplate... Let me try that again. A glass faceplate is
really
very impractical.
Yeah. Do you want to move on?
I think we wanted to talk next about, was it Supergirl or Stormwatch?
Let's do Supergirl.
Supergirl. Now, I have not actually been reading Supergirl.
So it'll be short.
You have, so why don't you take the floor?
Okay, well, here are the covers for a bunch of them.
Did we talk about Supergirl number 2?
Did we talk about Supergirl
I think we did.
I think we did. Yeah, because we talked about, well, in Supergirl number 2, she runs into Superman, doubts that he's really Kal-El because when she knew him, he was a baby, and now he's all grown up, and blah, blah, blah. But, as we talked about in issue 1, Supergirl is a lot about her coming into her own skin, kind of like Batgirl.
Interesting.
But she's completely alien, unlike Batgirl, who's been around the block and just kind of getting used to being Batgirl again. Supergirl is completely fresh. She has no idea where she is, what she can do. It's all about discovery. And so far, I'm liking Supergirl. I like the arc. The arc is that she landed on Earth, she meets Superman, she gets captured, and she escapes. So that's in 4, basically, in 4 things. And I think what they do, they establish a nice, I guess, arc, through those 4 issues of plotline of her getting her powers, and it's all about development right now. And in the first page of issue 1, she has no idea what anything is. By the end of issue 4, she's used to some of her powers. She has an idea that she's not on Krypton anymore, and
I don't think we're on Krypton anymore, Toto.
And she's
get it? It's funny because Superman lives in Kansas.
Yeah, oh my God!
From Kansas.
I didn't even put that together. But
it's not really funny, but
no, but that's cool how the Kansas thing, and and the end of issue 4, she's kind of adjusting that that she's not on Krypton anymore, and she might have to trust Superman. So I just think to go very brief since you didn't read it, and we can't have a cool little dialogue like we did
I
about
think I
Batgirl.
think it would be interesting that because I haven't read it, I'm actually learning from what you're saying. That you're actually
Oh,
telling me things about it that I don't know.
but Supergirl is very powerful. And then we get a lot of that. Unlike Batgirl, where she's getting beaten up a lot, Supergirl is kind of off a leash and does she's slowly learning coming to terms with all the powers that she has. And by the end of issue 4, she can use them like
Do you think
on instinct.
Do you think it's done effectively?
I think it's done very effectively. Yeah,
No.
I think it doesn't feel at all arbitrary. It all feels very natural. Like she doesn't all of a sudden know how to fly. Like she stumbles, then she kind of gets used to it, and then at the end, she's using flight and super strength and stuff, almost by instinct. So it feels like a natural progression of her gaining her powers, and of her coming to terms. It's not like all of a sudden she's like blah. Everything that happens when she comes to realize stuff, it's all provoked by something. Like she learns that she's not on Krypton anymore by looking at a map, and she gains a little bit more trust for humans when she sees someone do something good. And
so would you say that in terms of her powers and also other things, issues 1 through 4 are the tutorial of the Supergirl series?
They're the tutorial. They're the introduction. The reader, as well as the reader who doesn't know much about Supergirl, and because they've changed Supergirl's past so many times, it is practically new with this issue 1. It's an introduction to who she is, and then for her, it's an introduction on where she is or who she will be and what she's going to do.
No,
so I think it's a very natural first beginning little curve, and it introduces what could be a main villain. We see a taste of him. We see his tragedy because, of course, all villains start with one bad day.
Yeah, like that day that the Riddler cheated on a test.
Mm-hmm. So I think we get a lot of tutorial, I guess. That's a good way of putting it. A lot of introduction. And it doesn't feel boring. It doesn't feel like exposition. It feels like a curve on its own. It's very good.
Do you think that? Well, actually, I guess 2 things. First off, Batgirl is kind of a reintroduction to the character.
Mm-hmm.
Supergirl here is really an introduction to the character on a complete level, not just an introduction to. I'm sorry, I forget her name. What is Supergirl's name?
Something L.
Well, they're all something L. Is it?
Sorry,
I'm not really.
I just called her Supergirl. The whole.
That's right. I forgot Black Canary's name earlier. Let's
something else. Sarah L. or I got this.
Carol.
Carol. Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
So
Kara.
This is
K-A-R-A-L.
There's the introduction for us to Kara L, if that is indeed her real name. But there's also sort of the question of Supergirl, the superhero.
Yeah.
Now, where are we in terms of that? Have we gotten anywhere? Or
she's not really a superhero yet, but she doesn't. By the end of issue 4, she's not malicious towards humanity. Like in the first issue, she kind of hates everything because the first thing she does when she wakes up on Earth is be attacked by robots. But by the end of issue 4, she sees something that changes her perception of humans, and she
warms up a bit.
She warms up a bit, and after realizing that she's on a Krypton, she wants to kind of work, even though she doesn't trust Superman yet. She's beginning. She wants to find out more, and he seems like the only way. Who the only person who would know.
See, it sounds to me, just from what you're describing, that this is the kind of thing that is doing a lot that would probably serve as a good foundation for a very long-running series.
Yeah.
That I have been...
Where other I guess, if I could...
You could finish.
Where other stories, a lot of the Batman ones, take place mid-continuity, even though they rebooted the whole universe. They take place with you kind of knowing... about with Batman or with Batgirl, they kind of take place with you knowing that before all this happened, Batgirl was in a wheelchair and all that. With Supergirl, you start off completely blank slate.
Well, not just that, but I think that I think a lot of stories. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head that I've been reading, but some of these I think work as stories at these initial arcs, and they're interesting and they're engaging. But at the same time, I don't really see them leaving a foundation for a full, long-running series. I suppose kind of like...
Deathstroke.
Like Deathstroke,
yeah.
Or let's say, for example, Green Lantern, New Guardians.
Uh-huh.
With New Guardians, the plot is all of these rings go to Kyle Rayner, and then what's going to happen, and everyone's chasing after him. That's a story. That's an interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, something's going to have to leave the foundation for a series that can last 10, 20, 30
years.
I was going to say issues, but a lot of series don't really stick around for that many decades. But it sounds like Supergirl is really laying the foundation for that kind of a long-running series.
Also, with something like New Gardens, because I don't think I'll be picking it up anymore, so I figure we should talk about it a little bit.
Perhaps we should, but perhaps not in this video.
Okay, well, we'll do that in a mysterious third video.
I'm thinking that we seem to be getting at around 20 minutes. Perhaps we should stop here and continue.
Well, I'm pretty much done with Supergirl. Do you have anything else you want to ask?
Yeah, so I think that...
I think we should finish Supergirl in this video, and then next video we'll...
Fantastic. So, that's Batgirl and Supergirl. They seem to be two very different series, but with those same elements of reintroducing us to characters. I mean, again, character-driven is not something that I'm inclined to complain about. Perhaps not the most... I think the one thing I will say about Batgirl is that these tend... The more character-driven something is, very often it tends to be a bit more heavy in terms of material. Slow, and also not as fun as some other series can be. But at the same time, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. So,
not at all.
Yeah, so I suppose we will be back with Stormwatch and...
All-Star Western.
And
Aquaman in the next video, so see you then.